Howdy folks, and welcome to today's lore episode, which is on the planet Felucia. Felucia was a hot and humid planet. Much of the atmospheric moisture was faintly caustic to a degree that most of its flora and fauna developed to be tough, rubbery, and fibrous. The dark, cloudy skies, the muddy terrain, and the many caverns and tunnels meant that fungi and ferns were the dominant flora. Felucia's lack of nutrients, however, meant that many species of aggressive carnivorous plants also developed on the moist, often mistbound world. All of the native life of Felucia had long adapted to the ultraviolet radiation from the system's sun, which was also called Felucia. Many were translucent to allow as much radiation as possible to pass through them. Some developed reflective skin, or carapaces, or even oily natural sunscreen. Other creatures and plants lived entirely below ground. Now, there was also a number of non-native species that could be found on Felucia, though how some of them even came to be on that planet in the first place remains a mystery. Now, to survive the violent native plants, animals, and insects, they of course had to be aggressive and effective hunters. Acklay and Rancor were not native to the world, but both actually did very well there, pretty much just feeding off the local wildlife. Now, nearly 30,000 years before the Clone Wars, a guild of Gossam explorers, the Gossam Kurovas, discovered Felucia and began the colonization of the planet. But, as would be the case with most sentient visitors to the weird, colourful and deadly jungles of Felucia, the Gossam had found it to be an immense struggle to establish a foothold. It seemed that all the disparate elements of the planet's ecosystems, the plants, animals, even the bacteria, were united in seeking to drive off the newcomers. Now, the unique fungi jungles of Felucia held another wonder beyond the plants and creatures. Many of the life forms, including the Felucians themselves, were force sensitive. This close connection to the living force was both a blessing and a curse, as the planet could be easily influenced by both the light and dark side of the Force. Unfortunately, events during and after the Clone Wars pushed the planet dangerously close to the dark side. Now, during the Clone Wars, the Gossam Shu Mei was president of the Commerce Guild, one of the major separatist parties. When she made Felucia the center of Commerce Guild military operations, Shu Mei led the Republic to attack the planet, and to escape the conflict on their world, the native Felucians literally went underground. Now, when the end of the war saw the issuing of the treacherous Order 66, there was a number of Jedi were killed on Felucia, including Ayla Secura. During the Jedi Purge that followed, Master Shark T hit on Felucia, where she tried to ready the natives and her embittered Padawan Maris Brood for the inevitable assault from Darth Vader and the Empire. However, Shark T was killed by Vader's apprentice, Starkiller, and Maris Brood and the Felucians fell to the dark side. Later, the Empire sought to wipe out the native Felucians, considering their force abilities a threat, and the planet's pain would last for many years. Now, even before there were larger predators that arrived on the planet from other worlds, Felucia had its fair share of native species that were able to maim, dismember, and destroy the unwary. The Yadua poison spitter, a semi-sentient plant with animal-like characteristics, actually spat poison and was trained by the Felucians to guard their territory. The planet's spore plants puffed out clouds of spores that suffocated and poisoned nearby creatures. Spike plants held spines at anything that touched them, while numerous varieties of pitcher plants just drowned anything falling into their inviting maws. And then there were the animals themselves. Now, not all new arrivals found Felucia hostile. The seeds of the Sarlacc drifted in from space to discover a world that allowed them to grow to a size unseen anywhere else in the galaxy. And numerous mature Sarlacc were present on Felucia, including the largest specimen ever recorded. It inhabited an area known as the Ancient Abyss, where it grew to cover many square kilometers, and achieved a degree of sentience beyond that of its brethren. The Sarlacc was so large that the native Felucians were able to use it as a relatively safe refuge from the Empire, although it was capable of using its tentacles to drag even the largest Rancors into its maw and devour them. Now, along with the equally aggressive and dangerous Acklay, the Rancor had been successfully transplanted to Felucia most likely brought there during a time probably some roughly 25,000 years before the Clone Wars, when the planet was part of the empire of Zim the Despot. Now the Acklay had adapted perfectly to hunting in Felucia's lush jungles and subterranean waterways, but the semi-sentient Rancor were quickly domesticated by the mysterious native jungle Felucians. Now, the Rancor's fierce, predatory nature has fascinated many. They originated on the outer rim planet of Dathomir, and on Felucia the imported Rancor population formed a bond with the natives similar to that of the witches of Dathomir. Now the natives of the fungus jungles were force sensitives and were heavily influenced by the mood of their living environment. Now the Rancor of Felucia, who had less access to prey than they did on Dathomir, resorted to eating certain fungi. As a result, they too could be affected, though more slowly and with more lasting effect. Now, a perfect example of this was the Bull Rancor that was adopted by the fallen Jedi Padawan Maris Brood. The Rancor that formed this bond with Maris Brood was taller and bulkier than many of its fellows on the planet, and had a longer tail. However, its immediate striking feature were the 4 horns that curved out like great tusks from its face. Also, the head was fringed with spikes and its skin was a sickly pale colour as opposed to the usual healthy green. The Felucians regularly painted their mounts using fluorescent natural dyes, but the Bull Rancor befriended by Maris Brood required no such theatrics to make it look fiercer. For those of you that remember from the Force Unleashed game, it kind of looked like an albino. When Maris Brood's master Shaak Ti died, dueling with Darth Vader's apprentice Starkiller, her Padawan fell to the dark side, and the Felucian people and the flora and fauna nearby were caught up by this fall, and this, coupled with the Bull Rancor's diet, may have helped mutate the beast. Maris Brood used her pet to patrol her domain in the Rancor graveyard on Felucia, but the Rancor was destroyed when Starkiller returned to Felucia to rescue Bail Organa from Shaak Ti's fallen apprentice, as we all know from the Force Unleashed video game, which, for all the games getting remastered, I kind of want to play that game again, but I want it on the next gen console. But anyway, that is pretty much the planet Felucia in a nutshell. Some of its history and the wildlife that inhabit it. It was a really kind of pretty but very dangerous planet at the same time. But anyway, if you liked the video, be sure to drop a like, subscribe if you're new to keep up to date with my videos, leave a comment or two, let me know what you thought of the video as well, and I will talk to you all in the next one. Later.